Hey there, Hillfolk, and welcome back to another episode of Appalachian Intelligence. We're extremely grateful to have you guys again for another week, to tuning in for another edition of AI. We're extremely thankful for you guys. The show has really been growing. We're starting into a new year. This will be our second, official year of Appalachian Intelligence, and it's growing. It's growing tremendously, and that's all because of y'all Hill folk out there. So we greatly appreciate it. Your hosts for the night, as usual, Justin, Ryan, and Lance. How you boys doing tonight?
You know, I muted myself. You do that every time.
Your boys back 2 for 2.
Yeah, baby.
Don't call it a comeback. 2 for 2.
Well, I got a message back from a couple listeners, or not a message back. I got a message from a couple listeners that said, and they pretty much had the same sentiment out there. So I'm allowing these few hill folk tribal leaders here, the elders, to step up and declare it for the entire population. But they said that the hard time that Lance received was well deserved.
Absolutely.
The public shaming was enough of a punishment.
Fair enough.
But forgiveness is always the answer. So
I forgave you the minute it happened.
Fully know what any of that means, but I'm here again. So
Lance, we gave the Hill folk a poll last episode whether to kick you off the show or not.
I actually had a listener walk into my classroom today who had spent 7 hours driving over the break and had just binged. Was off on a couple and had binged. He said had 14 hours worth of Appalachian Intelligence he'd listened to over the last week and a half. And the first thing I said was, "I'm sorry." He came in and he was forgiving me for being my tardiness or my absenteeism, I guess.
So that was a vote for no. I voted no as well.
And you're really the only one that matters, Ron.
Yeah.
The Hill folk,
the three of us, the Hill folk matter more than anything. But other three of us here, your vote counts more than mine and Justin does.
That's true, because you're the only one that specifically ever gets named in anything. So
it's true.
You're obviously
give people what they want.
Yeah.
We did Roswell Part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hashtag
Anyway, moving on. We do have a guest with us tonight, but before we get in and introduce the guest and get into the whole meat of this thing, get into all the ooey gooey goodness, we're going to read a 5-star review sent in from a awesome listener. This says, another great show, 5 stars. Great show, guys. I believe another podcast, maybe Cryptids of the Corn, did something about aliens or entities that use cloaking while in our atmosphere. Sounds like what the guy was seeing through the telescope with different lenses. It's crazy what's out there that we haven't seen yet. I heard that the moon may have insects on it. I believe they call them lunatics. That joke is free. Run with it. Keep up the great work. Joel. That was from Junkfly, but the listener signed off as Joel. So we decided, hey, that was a great review. We love hearing from the listeners. We love when they reach out. We love when they communicate with us. We love to build the community. So we said, hey there, Junkfly, Joel, why don't you come on the show and talk about some weird stuff? So tonight, the man that is guest appearing on AI, Appalachian Intelligence, he's smart and witty, but not educated. Raised on collard greens, moonshine, and gravel. A super awesome cook, a firearms enthusiast, and a fly fisherman since age 7. The second place runner-up in the never-ending midlife crisis competition, and as a kid was once spanked so hard with the leather belt from Disney World that he had Mickey and Pluto imprints on his ass for 3 days. He is the most interesting person this side of the mailbox. We've got Joel with us tonight, folks. We got Joel. So, Joel, how's it going, man?
What's up, Hillfolk?
Welcome, Joe. I hope Mickey and Minnie faded eventually.
Yeah, thank God.
And I just want everybody to know that Joel he's like OG Hillfolk, okay? Like this guy was listening to Appalachian Intelligence and communicating back and forth with us in the community that we're building before we ever even dubbed the name Hillfolk. So it's been really, really cool building a relationship with this dude, and having communication from him and seeing some feedback coming from him. And this is what I like, because this is a kind of y'all know that I give out. I'm an intro master. Okay. That's what I do. That's the only thing in the world that I'm good at is introductions. And Joel recognized that and how much hard work that I put into these introductions. And he said, you know what? I'm just going to write my own intro. All right. It's not as easy for these guys to do homework on me as they do these other content creators. So I'm just going to let them know a little bit about me, and I'm going to write my own intro and send them their way. So I appreciate that.
Lance or Justin was like, hey, he wrote his own intro. I was like, really? What'd he put? He's like, you have to wait. I was like, oh, okay. I'm excited now. That's
But anyway, Joel, you told the Hillfolk a little bit about yourself in that self-written, self-authored intro there. But to let us all know a little bit more about you, why don't you explain a little bit about yourself? What you do, where you come from, and I know you have some awesome stories to share with us. So we're just gonna let you run with it, man. We'll let you go, and whenever we want to cut in or jump in, we'll try not to be rude about it, but we'll just see how the conversation goes, man.
We'll try not to.
Well, I appreciate that, and be as rude as you want. I do not care. I'm divorced with 2 kids. There's not much you can say that's going to hurt my feelings. No, my name is Joel. I live in the Atlanta area, north of Atlanta, in a town called Cumming. There's your joke. I always wondered why they never had the taste of Cumming or bumper stickers that said "I love Cumming."
You should absolutely open a food truck and call it the taste of Cumming.
Well, I'm a professional chef. I've been a chef for over 30 years.
Oh wow!
Yep. And I've been living in this area my whole life. I did moved to Tennessee and lived there for a couple of years up on the Cumberland Plateau. And I lived down in New Orleans for a couple of years on Bourbon Street.
Nice.
So yeah, I've seen some pretty messed up stuff.
Yeah.
But no, what I came to talk about is I guess to start with is the sleep paralysis, and I'll answer any questions you want, as far as, getting whipped by the belt from Disney World, up to the sleep paralysis. There's a story behind it all. But I don't want to use the word suffer. I don't consider it. I suffered it. It sucked. And there were times that it was pretty horrifying. Now, a lot of times I didn't realize how horrifying it was. Anybody who suffered from it will tell you, when you wake up, you are so scared, and you're just, everything's fine. Everything's cool, but you're just scared, and you just sit there and just, you'll sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, just looking around. And, finally, my age is my bladder. I'm like, all right, I got to get up now. But, the first one I ever had was in 1993. I was 21 years old. I just turned 21, and I worked for an aftermarket auto body parts delivery company. And once a month, we delivered down to the panhandle of Florida and Alabama, and I would take that route. And so I went down there, stayed in a hotel, wake up the next morning, I make my deliveries, drive back to Atlanta. So I'm in Mobile, which can be a creepy town. and I'm in this, I think it's a Holiday Inn or something like that. It's old. I remember the walls look like those bricks that are in like a school building. They're all like perfectly square. That's what I remember about it. And I remember I went and bought a 6-pack of beer across the street. And I walked back to my room. I cracked one open. I turned the TV on. I sat down. I took like 2 sips and then I was out. I was tired. I've been driving all day. And then I woke up to something sitting on me, holding me down. And my head was turned. And all I could see was the TV and like a hand, like bone and like flesh missing and just gnarly looking. And it was just scraping down the pillow. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. And I was trying to move. I was, that's where they get the paralysis from. I couldn't move at all. And all of a sudden it clicked in my head that at some point I'd heard someone talking about how when people, I guess, have sold their soul to the devil or whatever, when they've gone through the ceremony, I guess, is they feel the weight of something sitting on them. And that went right into my head. And I just, right there, I freaked out. I got up, I started moving, and I was eventually able to make my arms move, make my legs move, and it went away. And I probably stayed awake for another 2 or 3 hours, just staring at the TV. It's like, what the hell just happened? I did not know. I buried it in the back of my head and went on about my life. And probably about 6 or 7 years later, close to 2000, I started having them again every now and then. And they would be creepy. There would always be some type of a monster, I guess, in it. And I couldn't tell you right now what they look like, but I knew they were there. And there was always like a barrier between me and the monster. And it was trying to get to me, and I had to stop it. And I would, try to shake myself out of it, because when you're in sleep paralysis, you're usually conscious of what's going on where you're at. Like in your bedroom, most of the time my eyes are open and I can see the wall, I can see the TV. There's been times where I've had, one of my sons when they were young sleeping in the bed, I could see him, but all that's going on at the same time. It's so hard to explain, but you get that same thing from anyone who has it. They always describe it that sort of way. Like you're aware of what's going on, but you're also in a dream, so to say. And those kind of came and went. Now in about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, my father started getting sick, and I just gotten divorced, and he asked if I would move in with him and help take care of him. I didn't know he was getting sick at the time. He knew something was wrong. I didn't. But he said he needed help around the house and the land. He had a good bit of property. And so I was like, sure, that keeps me trying to find a place to buy. And it's a good place to raise kids, lots of land. There's a lake, there's woods. And that's when they started getting weird. Now, I will say my mother died in this house probably about 15 years before that. I've never seen a ghost in there. Nothing has ever happened that made me think it was haunted by any means. Now, this is when I could start feeling myself go into paralysis. It would feel like a tingling in my head, and it would kind of tingle down through your body. It kind of reminded me of if you ever have surgery and they're about to put you under, they'll put that medication through your IV that knocks you out, and you can feel it kind of going through your body. That's what it felt like. And for a while, I didn't know what was going on until I realized I was going into sleep paralysis. But I didn't know how to stop it, and it was very uncomfortable. And it would, typically be the same. I was in the room, down the hallway, there were monsters, and I had to stop them. And while I had to stop them, I also had to try to get out of this paralysis. So for a while, I would try to touch my fingers together. I read somewhere that, you know, if you can kind of touch your fingers like this, it'll get you out of it. At the time, I didn't know anything about, you know, using the name of Christ against the evil spirits or whatever it was. I know some people have success with that, because I didn't really look it up other than, you know, whatever it probably said on Wikipedia. And that's when things got weird. Then that was your typical sleep paralysis where you can feel it coming on, you'll go into it, or you'll try to get yourself out of it. I was usually pretty lucky about getting out of it, staying awake for a little while, and then try to go back to sleep. If I laid on my back, I was almost certain to go into it. So I got into the habit of sleeping on my side. Now, this is where the crazy stories are. There's the sleep paralysis where I will fall asleep and I will be asleep, and then I will go into it. And this is where everything is super vivid. And there were 3 instances where while I was in the sleep paralysis, I was in a house and I was with other people, and we were all being taught how to levitate. and
Okay,
once,
Joe,
yep,
I'm gonna cut in real fast.
cut in, man.
Have you ever thought of the possibility of aliens just fucking with you?
I have. I've often said that I wonder if a lot of people mistake this for abduction, and maybe it is, maybe I don't know. And there's this lady, Vicki Joy Anderson, and she was on Kill the Mockingbirds podcast, and she knows a lot about sleep paralysis. I think she wrote a book about it, and I actually contacted her and talked to her about
They
a lot
come
of
out
this.
at night.
They come out at night, exactly. And she kind of mentioned the aliens thing, and maybe it was. Now, in this house, what they kept saying was, if you're gonna time travel, you have to know how to levitate. Just that one goes with the other. And they were teaching us how to levitate, and then once we were levitated, how to move. And now this is the part that I thought was pretty fun, because I could not tell you how I levitated. I just know I levitated. Moving was you sort of lean forward and you kind of move your feet down like this, and you go forward, up, stops like this, goes backwards. And you kind of move your body, and
it's like you're on a hoverboard.
Yeah, exactly. And they would get us levitated, and they would tell us, okay, go through the house, practice. Only 2 rules is don't go on the 3rd floor, and don't go in the room where there's 2 guys on a computer. And so what do? I go in the room with the 2 guys on the computer. And as soon as you go in there, they kind of wave you over. They're like, hey, come here. They want to talk. I guess they sit in this room, but they don't get anybody to talk to, from what I can tell. And so you go over there, and they start just yapping and like that, you know, telling you what they're doing. And they're like, well, what we do is we send things down, drop things on the planet, and then wait for a newscast or something about it. And that lets us figure out where and what time period that is that we can send people through. So he said, for instance, like we may drop like 1,000 fish somewhere. And then all of a sudden you'll check the news where they're like, hey, something, you know, so-and-so reports seeing, you know, fish just falling out of the sky. And then we know that it happened on this date at this time in this area. And so we can fix that. And that's where we can send people.
Oh my
They meant,
God.
yeah, it was crazy. So whoever it was that was teaching us to levitate, I talked to them. I saw them. They were shorter than me, and that's why, the alien thing. I couldn't tell you what they look like, but they come in the room after these guys are done telling me everything. And as soon as they see me talking to them, I start to wake up. And that's when I start feeling the buzzing feeling in my head and the paralysis, and I'm trying to get out of it. That's how I know I was in sleep paralysis. So that happened again, probably, I don't know, several months later. I go back into it again. Same thing. I'm with a group of people. We're all lined up. We're being shown how to levitate. We're being shown how to move. We're told to go practice. Don't go in the room with the guys. Don't go on the third floor. Go wherever else you want to. This time, I think I actually went with some people and just kind of went around the house, I guess, floating. It was fun. It was really cool. And then I came back kind of to where we were being taught. And that's when I went by the room with the guys. And I went in there and they were like, "Hey, come over here. And just wanted company. And they had mentioned, what did they had mentioned dropping something else. And I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was like, they were like, we can make it rain different colors, and we're going to try that and see if, we see any newscasts about it or newspapers or anything like that. Something like that. It may not have been that. And I get busted and I'll wake up. The third one, same thing. I'm with people, learn everything, learn how to move. Don't go in the room. Don't go on the third floor. I go on the third floor. The third floor looks almost like a hayloft, like a barn. And the hay door, the main door on the front of a barn up top, you open it, you put your stuff in there. That door was open and it was just dark, and it was just, you could see just light kind of just zooming by. Almost reminded me of like when Star Trek or Star Wars and they go into warp drive, that kind of look. And so I just walk closer to it and closer to it. No one's up there. Actually, I'm levitating. Yeah. And I get right to it and I just fall out. And I just, instead of going forward, which is the way the light's going, I just fall. And I wake up and I'm in my paralysis. And I never had that dream again. And I guess because I didn't behave and do what I was told, whatever the hell that was, I never got to do it again. It was,
Damn it,
it
Joe.
wasn't.
There's two rules. There's two rules, Joe. You've got me. You've got me thinking. Now, Justin, it all clicked just now. Something you said just today, Ryan. You've been asking them to show themselves. Well, in the evening times, especially when I was on gummies or drinking, I would stand outside here while I'm pissing off the porch and look at the sky and be like, "Listen, if you're real, just show me. You show all these other people. I actually want to know if you're real." Talking to aliens, you're trying to. And then I have this nightmare. I'm wondering if I'm mistaken a demon or an alien for a demon. It all just kind of clicked.
Ryan, there's a great demonologist that wrote several books about different levels of demonology, linking it somewhat to aliens. I don't have the name. It's tip of my tongue. I can't think of it. Anyhow, the quote he uses a lot in his books is, "The more that you find out about them, the more they find out about you." So the more you're looking around trying to find them, the more they're looking around trying to find you as well.
Well, and something that I'm looking into that keeps popping up is the idea, whether you're talking about John Keel you know, the Mothman prophecies and the books that he wrote, when you look at this phenomena, you know, whether it be UFOs, sleep paralysis, cryptids, ghosts, poltergeist activity, demons, when you look at all of these different things, it almost has a trickster kind of mentality behind it, to where these different categories of this phenomena will show themselves to different people, or sometimes the same person, in different ways, and will relate to that person's belief system, that person's experiences, that person's you know, whatever, where they are in their life. So like Joel was talking there, you know, talking about Vicki Joy Anderson and her book, They Only Come Out at Night. I missed a word there. It's they only come out at night, not just they come out at night. Sorry, Vicki. We're probably going to have you on the show eventually, so I'm going to go ahead and apologize.
We hope.
Something that she talked about a lot, and Joe, I'm super excited that you reached out to her, because she has one of the most interesting takes on sleep paralysis that I've heard, because she's an experiencer as well. So, you know, she's not just somebody standing outside of the circle looking in and saying, oh, well, these are the reports that I'm getting, so this is what I believe. She's an experiencer. So she knows, you know, what's going on. Before Ryan said, have you ever thought it was aliens? You know, that's where my mind has kind of been operating at, because something that she describes is, you know, people that have these UFO encounters, these encounters with extraterrestrials or ultraterrestrials or whatever these things tell these people, because they're all over the board. Again, some kind of intelligence behind there fitting to this person's belief system. When these things happen, one of the telltale signs is what? Missing time, right? It's easy for people to say, or to show some evidence when they say, I have no idea where 2 or 3 hours went. One minute I was here looking at these lights. The next minute, you know, I had this vision or this, you know, whatever, of talking to this entity, and this entity said this and yada, yada, yada. But the next thing I know, I was back in my vehicle. I was 20 miles up the road, and 2.5, 3 hours have went by. And I have no idea where it went. I mean, that's, you know, you hear that from people and you're like, okay, yeah, you got abducted. You know, somebody's probing you.
How was your ass?
Yeah.
And Joe, I've got a question for you too.
Hold on, real quick. Hold on, real quick, Lance. Just to finish that point out.
I thought we weren't going to be rude, Justin.
Something that Vicky said. Well, before he asked this question, I just want to finish this point. Something that Vicky says is, what time in your life do you ever go into it expecting missing time? It's when you go to sleep, right? That's when you lay down and go to sleep at night.
Yep.
You expect to go to sleep at whatever time and to not wake up until your alarm goes off in the morning. So you have, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours of missing time. So in that time, what can happen? You know, if you're going to be taken somewhere, or if something's going to happen, that's going to be it, right? All right. Sorry, Lance. Go ahead. Ask your question. I'm really sorry.
Good. You're good. You mentioned that you started having, I guess, these little more vivid paralysis dreams. I'll call it dreams, just for a better word.
Yep.
Once you moved in there to help out with your father, was there any familiarity to the rooms, or you mentioned going to the barn the last time? Is there a barn on the property? Is there anything that's familiar? Did things feel familiar while you were in this paralysis, this dream state, or whatever?
It did, but like the house, I say it's a house because that's what it felt like inside there. Like when they would tell us to go practice, we were going down hallways and, go outside and there'd be grass on the ground and whatnot. But I couldn't tell you if it looked familiar, but I didn't feel like I was, somewhere I wasn't supposed to be or just anything like that. There is a barn on the property with almost the exact same setup, a hay loft with the hay door. But yeah, it was crazy. And when I told Vicky the story, she said she's never heard anyone talk about sleep paralysis like that. Usually and it is. I mean, even those times when I was coming out of it, I was scared. But while I was having it, it seemed fun. No one was threatening me. I was getting to levitate. I was getting to move around. It was fun.
The levitation mechanics, I guess, the process of that, was it something that within the dream, I know it wasn't a dream, I'm just calling it a dream for lack for a better word, was it something that you just kind of picked up on quick, or did it take a little bit of time, or was it something that like you did once they showed you, kind of just could just do it?
As far as the moving around, once they showed us, that was easy. That was, we immediately all took off and went our separate ways and did our thing. How we levitated, I couldn't tell you. I know they were trying to teach us how to levitate because they kept saying you can't travel in time if you can't levitate. And I guess that's if you travel somewhere and all of a sudden there's not ground underneath you, or you have to be able to levitate. That was, I couldn't obey the rules. And
could you make out this might be a little too detailed of a question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If you can't, then say you can't. No big deal. Could you make out the faces of the other people that were there with you?
No.
You just knew that they were there.
I just knew that they were there.
And you knew they were more like you rather than the people that were teaching.
Yes, they were humans.
Okay.
Yeah. And
also, just going back to when you first started talking about you experienced sleep paralysis, and you said you had heard that people might deal with that when they sell their soul to the devil. Did you try to sell your soul to the devil,
No.
Joe?
Oh, okay. Hell no. Oh, hell no.
I thought that's where that was going. I was like, Joe, did you go to the crossroads?
Let me ask you another question too. Have you heard of other people who have had shared experiences that are similar to this?
No. I've heard lots of sleep paralysis stories, dreams, whatever. And typically there's a couple of different entities they describe.
Right.
And I couldn't tell you, I can only name one entity that I actually saw, and that's my last sleep paralysis I had, which I'll tell in a little bit. But they're always just talk about being scared and petrified.
Right.
And
it's just the detail is so great. Like, and you're able to recall so much of this.
Yep.
And there was, this obviously was, you were there, if you want to stay there for quite some time. You're able to move around and go into the room and then get explained to why, there's a lot of things that happened. I was curious to see if there had been other people, maybe you had a shared dream experience where there was there's other people in the area they had abducted or whatever you want to call it. That's the reason I asked that. But yeah, it's of all the sleep paralysis stories I have read, and I read a lot of them because they terrify the daylights out of me.
Yeah.
This is by far the craziest one I've heard.
And I'm hoping by me telling my story, hopefully somebody will be like, "Hey, I've had that happen."
That would be cool. Yeah, not cool for them, but cool to be able to see, like, then be able to talk to them and see if there was some similarities in what was going on. You probably really start digging for some answers.
It'll just be cool, especially if they experience the same type of thing and around the same time. Which, the way those guys were talking, maybe those people could have been from any time.
Yeah. I mean, it's
true.
He could have been floating around with a freaking Cro-Magnon there.
You could have been outside of the time-space continuum there. I just out there floating in negative space and jumping in and out of the timeline.
Now
Yeah.
I do remember the guys that were in that room. The two things I remember most is how friendly they were. Because once you look in that room, they're just like, "Hey, come here, come here," like they needed someone to talk to, and they were dressed like I don't know, kind of like in that movie Catch Me If You Can, like how Tom Hanks and the FBI agents were dressed in the 50s, like that, just that white shirt, tie, pants, very, just it was weird, but yeah, that was
Sounds like classic government officer.
It sounds like
yeah,
classic Men
yeah.
in Black.
Yeah.
Classic, just office government agent, not a field worker.
Yeah.
Or like Riley says, they push their glasses up like this, if you know it, catch my drift.
And this is a kind of a silly question. Have you tried just to levitate at the house? Like
Yeah.
you tried to try to
But
just do that.
Joel, you can't
Just in a
time
normal-
travel
just in a-
until you
just in a
levitate. Damn it.
normal
What are you
day,
doing?
like you know what? I was able to do this during sleep paralysis. Can I do this in real? Have you tried to do that at all?
Now, one thing I have noticed, and I mean, I guess I was trying it, but when I was waking up from those, my feet were doing
Yeah.
they
How do
were
you
they
go
were
and-
pushing forward real hard, like almost to the point it was sore. Like my feet were sore. Like I'd been doing it while I was sleeping, and
Wow. And man, maybe this is something like because okay, so you have a couple sleep paralysis experiences before these experiences start going on, before you start going to this place and outside of the space-time continuum with these teachers that are teaching you to levitate and all of these different things. But it's almost, for me, it sounds like the first couple, 3 times, whatever it was like a trial run.
Right.
And maybe that's what sleep paralysis is for a lot of people. Maybe it's a trial run to see, okay, how you're going to act, how your body, physically and mentally, how you're going to respond. Is this person going to be a worthy candidate for the things that we can pass down and deliver and teach them? That's just what it makes it sound like to me. It's almost, it sounds like you graduated to the next level of sleep paralysis 101 school. So now we can pull you up here and we can teach you these things, and we can show you, because even with that, it's like you remember all the details, you remember the place, you remember these two guys and talking to them and how friendly they are, and they kind of sound like slaves to me. Like they're stuck here in this one place forever, and when they do see somebody, they're like, "Oh God, please come here. We need some interaction." But like you get here and you can describe all this stuff so vividly, but you can't describe the people or the entities or the whatever it is that's trying to teach you. To me, that sounds sus, to use the common kid vernacular now. It's super sus.
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've and even before I, really started looking into what this was, because kind of going back to telling a little bit about me, I had never listened to a podcast at year and a half ago. Just I work, I come home, I have my hobbies, I do my woodworking, I go and shoot my 5,000 firearms I own, and I never had time, come home, go to bed, and I screwed around and got me a girlfriend, and she loved podcasts, and she was listening to the Hollis Guy, Confessionals, you guys, and I was kind of stuck listening to it, and then I started hearing every once in a while someone will talk about sleep paralysis, and I'm like, oh, I've done that, and that's kind of how I got to that point where I started actually listening to what other people were talking about, and kind of how I found Vicky, and it's I guess it all kind of came together for a reason, and
Yeah.
But I can't explain those three were so vivid. And Vicky kind of said the same thing. Like I was being tested. I was seeing if I was the right person for this, and I proved that I could not be trusted, or I could not.
You're just a
I could
doggone
not
rule
follow
breaker.
rules.
You're
Well,
too
that may be-
curious. Too curious.
Yeah, that may be for the best. So, I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I don't know. You may be time traveling through, you may be some kind of time travel warrior right now. But who knows? I mean, I guess it
What
depends
if
on
when
how
he
you
went
look at it.
upstairs and just fell where the lights were going, he kind of reset and his sleep paralysis is going to recur again. He just has a vivid dream of it happening before, but it actually hasn't happened yet. That's crazy thought.
What if? No, I'm not even gonna say that. I'm not even gonna say that. I don't want to scare him to death. We'll just we'll save that for later.
Oh man.
The only thing I was gonna say is, what if they think that he's like an escapee?
Oh yeah.
They're not doing a good job of finding me. So.
Yeah,
Oh.
you would think they know where you are. You haven't moved, right?
Yeah, I've moved since then.
Oh, you've moved since then. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean that.
See?
And if you want to hear the last sleep paralysis,
Oh yeah, we definitely.
that's the
hear.
creepy one.
For sure.
Okay, so I live with my dad. I'm taking care of him. He gets Parkinson's, and so I'm spending a lot of time working full time. I'm taking care of him. My stepmother, I'm for the most part taking care of her. Gets to a point where I can't. So my dad always said, look, son, I have a not funeral home, but assisted living insurance. I bought it back in the 60s. They don't have it anymore, really, or nursing home insurance. He kept telling me, use it. I'm getting sick. Use it. So I used it. I put him in assisted living. And he got worse and worse, and he eventually passed away, which, I watched my mom be a vegetable for many, many years. I didn't want to watch dad the same way. So, I mean, it was bittersweet, but it was probably better that it happened than, be on life support for however long. But anyway, so I was executor of the will. So I eventually relocated my stepmother and sold the property. And probably the second to the third last time I slept in that house, I went into sleep paralysis and I couldn't get out of it. And I couldn't tell you what happened during it, but I woke myself up screaming, "Who the hell are you?" And I'm laying on my bed. My head is turned to the left. My arm is stretched out. There is a lady kneeling at the end of my bed, long blonde hair, younger. She has my hand and she's rubbing it and she's saying, "Everything is going to be okay," over and over again. And I'm just screaming, "Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you?" I wake myself up. It's my mother.
What?
Dude,
Yeah.
I just got chills. Lance, you picked a terrible
did
time to
too.
let the wind blow.
Oh my goodness! So it was your mother from like a younger time in her
Yes.
life.
Yes. She had blonde hair and skinny, pretty, and that's who it was. And while I was saying, "Who the hell are you?" I didn't know. I just knew some lady was at the end of the bed holding my hand and rubbing it, telling me everything is going to be okay. Second I woke up, it clicked. That was Mom.
And this is your mother from when you remember as a kid?
This is my mother from pictures I remember. Probably when I was a kid. But lots of pictures I've seen of her before then, like when her and my father just got married, things like that.
See, that's a scary thing because there's pictures in the house. And if they can see you and everything else around the house, maybe they could see those pictures and pick which one.
The only pictures of my mom that are in the house, my dad had lots of pictures. Most of them were the grandkids or his new wife. there were a couple of pictures of mom, but they were when she was older, like during my brother's first marriage, during that wedding. Picture of her sitting with my brother. And that's right when she started to get sick. But there were no pictures when she was younger. But
so
yeah.
usually I would be on the same line of thought here as Ryan, because I'm finding more and more and more when I look into this stuff, I don't trust anything. Like I don't trust it. And so usually I would be like, you know what? Yeah, again, this is some kind of trickster, something that's, pretending to be. But I'll say this. This makes several times that I've heard this same kind of, not necessarily the same kind of experience per se, but the same kind of, something's going on negatively in the paranormal realm with an individual, and someone that individual loved and was close to kind of stepped in and comforted that person. I've heard that several times now, but it's actually the second time on this show. Boys, if y'all remember Tessa being on here and talking about her experiences and how her grandmother would show up and kind of, it's the same kind of deal. So, it's one of those things. Yeah.
Right?
So
but
it's
then
one
the
of those
things would come to
things.
the ceiling.
Yeah, but it's like she would look panicked, remember?
Yep,
like she would talk about how her grandmother looked so panicked and so worried and so scared. And it was the same kind of thing. It's almost like there's something there that's fighting against the negative, whatever. It's like Joel said, while he was there at this place, he didn't really feel negative. Like he's having a blast, dude. He's riding invisible hoverboards all over this house and going and talking to two government, there are two accountants in a cubicle with a computer in front of them talking about how they drop crap down on Earth and watch people go crazy about it. It's like two ultimate pranksters. They sound awesome. But when he would come out of that, that's when the terror really starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've only experienced sleep paralysis one time, once my entire life. I can tell you, just doing it once, that's the only time I ever want to do it. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. Even when you know what's going on and okay, eventually I'm going to break out of this. But while you're there in it, it feels like it lasts for hours. Like it feels like you just can't do anything. So even though this place that Joel was going, even though the things that he was doing while he was there and this training that he was going through, like even for him, it doesn't sound like a terrible experience. I mean, at the end of the day, he's going through sleep paralysis. He's feeling a sense of terror and that somebody's there and somebody's, he's fighting off these monsters that are coming for him and all these different things. So it's like when he's in his usual conscious state, his constant or his regular state of mind, he knows something's here. It's not supposed to be here. I don't like it. Literally calling it monsters. And then by some flip of a switch, something that they're able to do once a different state of Joel gets taken to wherever, he's having a blast. He's having a good time. But then it's almost like the transfer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's almost like that change of entering this place and exiting this place is rough. I don't know, dude. My mind is just firing right now. My brain is firing. Like I've never heard stories like this before.
It's going a million different directions. Is what my
and you know that last experience I told you about. That's the last one I ever had. I've never
so far.
That was 3 years ago. I bought two houses after that, one an investment property and one I live in, and I've never had a sleep paralysis.
So
Since
Joel, let
then.
me ask you this: what you obviously are a guy who theorizes and thinks deeply. What do you think that this was? What have you postulated in your mind that this was?
I feel like it's another dimension. Now, who's controlling that? Aliens, entities, I don't know. But I feel like it's another dimension, and I had the ability to go there, and it's almost like I had the ability to go there and I screwed it up. I mean, it's you know, I couldn't. That's kind of like what Vicky told me. You know, I couldn't conform to what they wanted me to conform to.
You're not a damn conformist, are you? That
Yeah, no, I'm not.
Rage
look at
Against the
that.
Machine.
Look at that long hair wearing a Nirvana t-shirt.
I'm so
you know he ain't
jealous.
following any
That's-
rules.
Yeah.
This is a rare Nirvana t-shirt. This is from the Bleach album, which came out in the late 80s. And I had one just like it back in the early 90s, and an ex-girlfriend stole it. And they don't make them anymore because of what it says on the back. But I found this one in England and snatched it up.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is nice.
It doesn't leave the
Okay.
house.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would not be letting any girlfriends borrow it.
I want to give a shout out to my girlfriend, Amanda. Super beautiful redhead, green eyes, Satan's daughter. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be talking to y'all.
Well, that's awesome. Amanda, you're the best.
Just
Thanks
so
for
happens
bringing us and Joel together.
we like redheads, don't we, Justin?
We love redheads with green eyes. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Do we?
Yeah.
We kind of like them.
Oh
No,
man.
that's awesome. Huge thanks to her for turning you onto the show, because we would not be getting these awesome stories right now without it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you,
This
Amanda.
just, it's so, I don't know. I can't get away from this. It's the last sleep paralysis experience you're having. You cannot come out of it. It's just like you're trying everything. And by this point, you know, you're a sleep paralysis vet. I mean,
Yeah, I'm familiar. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And for you to not be able to come out of that, I'm sure was a sense of, you know, terrible fear.
I was angry. I can remember yelling, "Who the hell are you?" and being angry, like
Yeah.
angry, like, why are you in my room talking to me?
And then all of a sudden, it's your mother stroking your hand, stroking your arm, saying, "It's going to be okay." Almost, God,
Yeah, creepy.
It's almost just like you're a little kid again, having a nightmare, or screaming in your sleep or whatever, and a parent, you know, your mother rushing into your room, and as you come to, it's your mother just caressing you and comforting you and saying, "Hey, it's going to be all right. You know, it's just a dream.
Yeah.
It's just a dream."
And this is the time of my life when I'm the executor of the will. So this land, which a lot of it was sold before I was even born, some was sold after, bits and pieces. I was the last male Pharr to sell the last bit of land. And I got a lot of grief from family members. And, you know, I had a hard time with my brother, mainly with money. You know, I want my money kind of thing. And so it was a, you know, anyone who knew me during the time would never say Joel was in a bad mood then, or Joel was just, but it was a difficult time because I was being looked at like, who are you to have to sell this land? You know, my dad had 7 brothers and sisters, you know, and, you know, what they're, you know, and their offspring are like, you know, why isn't I the one that's, you know, getting rid of the last bit of land, the farm? You know, the farm has been there since 1929. You know, I was the last one selling the last bit of it, and so it kind of weighed heavy on me, but it was something I needed to do. I couldn't afford to upkeep it. I couldn't afford to pay the taxes on it. And so I don't know if that was the, everything is going to be okay kind of thing or what,
Yeah, it may very well could have been. I mean, it could have been all encompassing. It could have been a lot of different things. I know that, well, shoot, in everybody's life, mine, these guys here, I mean, on any given day, there's going to be multiple things going on that you could really use a arm around your neck saying, hey, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. Yeah. So that's just, I have no idea. I can't give you a theory. I can't give you an answer on any of this. I just know that they are amazing accounts. And it just broadens the spectrum of, what are we dealing with? What is this stuff?
Yeah, it's bizarre, and some of the stories it seems like every story I hear is it's always entities, demons, monsters, and I've had my share of them. But it's the only word I can use is the times when I was being taught to levitate and to move. It was fun. I mean, I wasn't scared. I was just doing what I was told, kind of, until I went to the room I wasn't supposed to go into, or I went on the third floor. But then when I came out of them, I was petrified, and
yeah. And it's also interesting, and Ryan knows my enamoration with the number 3, but it's also interesting that it was the third floor.
Yeah.
And that third dream.
Yeah.
Oh,
I only had 3 of those.
It was
only had 3 of those that were like that.
It was the third floor of the third dream. I
mean, I had other sleep paralysis that were your typical creepy, but it was I had 3 that were where I was being taught to levitate.
Man.
That is,
I like your dimension theory, Joel. That's it's fun to think that there's dudes in another dimension. They're just like us, but sitting over there, just like they can manipulate ours, so they're just fucking with us constantly. Like, I'm gonna drop fish in Indiana.
Yeah, well, you go back. Okay, go back to like what I was talking about with John Keel, right? Looking at John Keel and the Mothman prophecies, and John Keel's theories that he had on, these ultra-terrestrials. Keel theorized that all these things were ultra-terrestrials. They weren't exactly extraterrestrials coming from all these different planets, but they were ultra-terrestrials that operated in different dimensions or different universes, and they would pop in and out of different time periods, right?
Yeah.
Because in a lot of these accounts, and when we're talking about John Keel, we're not just talking about, this dude that had these theories based on, this dude was boots on the ground. I mean, he was in Point Pleasant when the Mothman sightings were going on right before the Silver Bridge collapse for 13 months. John Keel was there, boots on the ground. He was there afterwards interviewing these people. He's been all over the world interviewing these people. So, like, the things that he sees, even though I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the beliefs and things that he stands on, like, you got to give somebody like that credit where it's due, right? The man has put the time and the work and the effort in. So in a lot of these accounts that he would talk about, you would have these people kind of coming in wearing ill-fitting clothes or clothes that were out of date. And they would always, they were so entranced and intrigued by time cycles, right? Like, when they would come and they would speak to humans, they would always or often ask the question, what is your time? And not just like, what time is it, but what is your time? Like, what time period is it? So what Joel is saying right here would make so much sense and would tie into John Keel's ultra-terrestrial, pretty much time traveler theory, that these things are operating and kind of coming in and out with news and messages for the human race. And just as many of these entities that are like trying to be beneficial and say, hey, you need to shut down this whole nuclear projects. Hey, you really need to take better care of the environment, or, this is going to happen. Just as many that come in with all this good news, you have different entities come in and say, hey guys, whenever the president hits the big switch on the Christmas tree at the end of the year, or on Christmas to celebrate, there's going to be a nationwide blackout, and then people are sitting in front of their televisions and they're waiting on this to happen. The people in the know, they're all sitting there. They're all waiting for it to happen. They're all thinking, no way this is going to possibly happen. In the back of their brain, they're thinking this is definitely going to happen. And then all of a sudden, the president flips a switch. Nothing at all happens. A couple minutes go by. A news reporter comes on and says, there's been a collapse of a bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where, dozens and dozens of vehicles have fallen into the river and an entire town. Like, it's almost like, look at the right hand so you don't see what the left hand is doing. So it's just, and I know that I'm rambling here, but man, my brain is just firing based on all this stuff that Joel, because here's the crazy thing, man. And I know we talk a lot about synchronicity. Ryan knows that I read the Mothman Prophecies a few years ago. I downloaded it on Audible and listened to it at work over the course of about a week, taking breaks here and there, because anybody listens to this, it's data driven. Like, it's really hard to stay in it for long periods of time. So I listened to it again a couple months ago. Ryan, what did I just tell you a couple days ago? I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going back and listening to the Mothman Prophecies again, because I feel like there's something that I'm missing.
Justin, this is embarrassing, but I can't remember.
Well, yeah, okay, whatever.
You tell me so much throughout the day.
I do tell you.
To be fair, we discuss a lot.
You're right. But okay, so a couple of days ago, I just said I'm going to go back and listen to it. Actually, as I pulled in the driveway 20 minutes before we started this recording, I was listening to the Mothman Prophecies. And all this stuff is stuff that, Keel theorizes. And it's almost on par with what Joel's explaining. I don't know. Gosh, it blows my mind, dude. It's so interesting.
It is, man. I'm glad that I got to hear other people's take on sleep paralysis. And I'm glad I heard Vicky that one time. And I reached out to her and she was right back, call me. I want to hear her. And like she said, she's never heard anything like that before.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely never heard anything like that before.
And yeah, I mean, it's, and when I was getting ready to call her a couple hours before is when I started, I was like, I need to write this stuff down so when I'm talking, I'm not like forgetting shit and whatnot. And I started writing it down, and that's when I was like kind of putting things together, like, well, this was kind of a bad time. And then I meet Mother, and then, then I sell the property, and then I move, and then I never have sleep paralysis again. And like, things start like firing off, like, oh, maybe this happened because this happened, and that happened because that happened. Yeah, I mean, and like I said, my mother died in that house. And I remember my dad called me at work and said, mom passed away, come home. And I came home and the paramedics had just gotten there, and he'd had her on the couch, and there she, I mean, dead as can be. And the morticians came and took her away, but you know, dad didn't die in the house or anything like that, but it was nothing haunted ever happened. My grandparents, who lived in Statesboro, Georgia, down south near Savannah, they had a big kind of colonial type house, and if there was ever a haunted house, that was the house that should have been haunted. And I played in that house as a kid, up and down the stair, all over the place, like places the adults didn't even go hang out. You know, nothing. You know, I've never seen a ghost. Other than maybe my last sleep paralysis. I've never seen a UFO. Nothing. And I mean, I believe. I mean, the country club I work at actually has a place where if you park, we go there and watch meteor showers, because you can park and you just have this huge view of the sky, and it's unobstructed, no trees. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so you don't get a lot of residual light. And I sat out there one time during a meteor shower, and I was like, oh, I'm going to see a UFO tonight. You know, no, that's a helicopter. No, that's an airplane.
Yes.
Joe, the farm you're talking about, was that incoming also?
No, that was in Gwinnett County in Lawrenceville.
Okay.
Which, you know, now it's, you know, back then it was in the country. Now it's right next to the Mall of Georgia. I mean, it's prime real estate. You know, they probably paid $1,500 for the whole, you know, 120 acres, and maybe 10 times that on 5. You know, it's
my whole family's down there, so they're from my grandmother used to live at Flowery Branch. My uncle still lives. Yeah. My uncle retired as a detective for DeKalb County.
Okay.
But so you're close to Lake Lanier.
Yep.
And Three Sisters Island.
Yep.
Now, isn't there something weird about Three Sisters Island? Is there?
I don't know if it's. I know there's the lady in blue. I think that's what she's called, or the lady in the blue dress, who people have reported seeing after they've had maybe a boating accident, and the lady's trying to pull them under or something like that. Now I went to a private school up on Lake Lanier, and we used to go out and, you know, being 13, 14, 15 years old, we went and did a lot of crazy shit, like jump off the damn bridges and things like that. But while I was there, some type of truck had ran off one of the bridges, and they had to send a crew down to get it out for insurance purposes. And I remember hearing the story because it happened while I was up there. But the first crew that went to try to, I guess, hook it up to ropes or chains or whatever, came back up and said, we're not doing this. And evidently it was so dark where they went that the lights that they had could barely, you know, cut through it. And while they were feeling the bottom, all they could feel were the backs of giant carp and catfish. And they just were like, yep, we're done.
Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah, I'd have been out too.
Just you saying where you were from, that made me think about the Three Sister Islands. And I thought there was
may be something to that. Because I work in Fulton County off Holcomb Bridge, which turns into DeKalb County if you go down it, Jimmy Carter. But no, and I mean, going on to the other weird places, Dawsonville. So take a little trip in history, and for you, Ryan, the first atomic bomb was dropped in 1942, and I'm pretty sure the Russians detonated their first one in 1948. Pretty sure that was it. See, I was paying attention. So the nuclear age is upon us, and the government, you know, we've already got the jet engines. We've we've got the nuclear powered submarine. We're like, what else can we run with nuclear power? So they think, how about airplane engines? Let's try it out. So they purchased some land in Dawson County, out in the middle of nowhere along the Amicaloa and Etowah River. And they set up the Air Force set up a huge base there. And they start testing nuclear powered airplane engines. And they use the river to drop the cell into to cool it down. And I mean, it's a huge thing. I mean, they have got hospitals there, they've got housing, massive. Well, I guess as everyone knows, nuclear powered airplane engines didn't quite catch on. So the city of Atlanta bought it, and it was going to be the airport, but they moved it down south of Atlanta, thank God. So they turned it into a wildlife management area. And that's it's called the City of Atlanta tract. There's several different tracts. That's the biggest one, I think. And there's lots of, dirt roads, Forest Service roads in there. You can drive around and you'll just come up on these huge concrete, like just like someone poured concrete on top of a building where they had gone in and covered everything radioactive. And there are YouTube videos of some people who have found out how to get into them and scuba dived several floors down, because I guess whenever they were pulling the radioactive cell out and cooling it, everyone had to go inside. And I've heard stories about just bizarre stuff in those woods. And I got to think with I mean, this was back in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s. So Dawsonville was a time. Now it's turning into the neighborhood for Atlanta. But back then it was, I mean, you go up there, you disappear, piss the wrong person off. And there's got to be some creepy stuff going on in those woods. One guy I talked to who grew up near there, and he recalls deer hunting out there, and he, at the time, I didn't explain different entities that I thought might be there, but the entity that he explained to me that he thought he saw was the rake or the skinwalker.
Yeah.
Way he described it.
Oh my God.
I'm going to tell you something. On the Hollow Sky, this last October, they were doing like Halloween stories, and they read one about a hunter who saw a rake or whatever through his night vision. That story scared the living shit out of me.
I remember
I've
that.
never heard a story that scared me so. I'm 50 years old. Scare me like that. And
me and Ryan were actually talking about that episode. Like it was one of those stories that as soon as you heard it, like first off, the dude explained it in such a way that you felt like you were there. And it was
I
one
could
of those
put myself
stories.
in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I started listening to it, because I think I started listening to it a little before Ryan, and I was like, dude, you've got to stop whatever you're listening to right now and go check out this story, because literally I've got goosebumps. It's one of the scariest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, when he just mentioned it right there, and I started remembering, I was starting to get chills because I was like, oh my man, that shit is just.
When that dude talks about that thing sitting down and putting its front hands, he sits down and he goes on his haunches and he puts his hands in the dirt and he raises his mouth, and instead of howling in a girl's voice, he says, "Help, help, I'm hurt." Yeah. I
Oh man.
I would have probably went and looked. I mean, if I didn't know something was like that, I mean, oh my God, man.
Just the idea that there are things out there that can mimic, and not just like it's different in thinking about like, it's different in like the couple mimic stories that I have where I feel like it's something that's just it's ultimately something spiritual. And by that I mean there's not really shape or form that's there. It's just, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
this dude is explaining some form of, I don't even know what you call it. I don't know if you call it a cryptid or I don't know what it is, but something that has the ability to mimic in an effort to lure somebody to them. I mean, it can't be for good. They're not trying to sit down and play rummy.
And he watched it all through his scope. And then he took that shot and the thing just looked at him and smiled.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to shoot it because he was like, we would be thinking, what if?
Yeah.
I'm looking at a monster, but what if it's just a crackhead and I kill him? I'm going to prison. And but yeah, that guy I talked to.
Is that absolutely also something a crackhead would do? I mean, so you don't want to just go shooting crackheads. That's not legal. And I don't even think they're in season yet, but that really was. That's terrible. It's like Justin and I talk about when we listen to Justin, my hands are stained from that wood today.
Man, you worked on that penis, didn't you?
Yeah. I told you HCS is real, guys. It'll leave burn marks all over you.
Sorry, I had to bring up the first penis jokes.
Oh no, I think I said it earlier. Cock balls. There's another one for you, bud. But yeah, man, that you are in an area that's got all kinds of I've heard tales about that area, like Georgia, DeKalb County, and what's really crazy. I have a family photo. Well, it's not a family photo. It's a photo of one of the first textile factories in DeKalb County, and my great grandfather was a kid. And dude, you would think I'm in the picture, and you could ask Justin. It's not. I look like him. It looks like I'm in the freaking picture. Now, I know I'm not the reincarnation because I met him. So I don't think that's how that works. He was still alive when I was alive. But
yeah, it's crazy. It's uncanny. Like the resemblance is uncanny. It looks like the same person.
Wow.
But yeah, I've always heard stories about especially around Lake Lanier, because that's a man-made lake, right?
That's a man-made lake. There's several towns or incorporated towns that got flooded, graveyards. They got some dug up, and I remember the last time the lake went really low a few years ago. It actually the old racetrack in Gainesville was under there, and you could see it. But yeah, there's actually some a couple of people that do ghost tours of Lake Lanier, and that's one of the next things I want to do. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of Fort Mountain.
Yeah, we talked about Fort Mountain when we did the Moon-Eyed People episode.
Yep. I just said I've never heard of it.
That's where
Did we?
That's where the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Cherokee lived.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Justin, like I said, we talk about so much, it all runs together.
I know. It's fine. It's fine.
You could have said Brown Mountain and I'd have believed you, but
I retain a lot of stuff, Ryan.
But that
my brain is like a weird
that
Rolodex.
We decided was the Earth's asshole, right?
Brown Mountain?
Yes.
That's what you decided, yes.
Well, I mean, that's what all those lights are, is the methane gas burning off in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because it's the Earth's asshole.
Make sure Cock Mountain ain't going into Brown Mountain.
Unless it's cool with it.
I mean, yeah, unless you're into that stuff. I mean,
Unless it's totally consensual between the two mountains.
Yes.
I mean, whatever two grown mountains want to do behind closed doors in their consensual relationship, it's totally fine.
Listen, they're older than us. They can do it.
Much older.
You get it.
And if you've heard of hell in Georgia. I don't know if being down in Georgia, you've ever driven up that way, but going up there, you have oh, I can't think of the name of that mountain now. Mount Yona. It's got all the cliff faces on it. And the Rangers train up there. The Ranger camp's not far from there. But we used to go up there as younger adults, I guess. And we would camp up there and go rappelling, very, very unsafely. But that place was kind of creepy because evidently there's some sort of American Indian folklore of a guy throwing, or an Indian squaw throwing herself off the mountain because she couldn't marry into a guy from another village or something like that. But yeah, Fort Mountain, I've been up there a few times, and the Cherokee would say that's okay, going back to Dawson Wildlife Management Area. There's 2 rivers that run through it. I'm going to be taking my kayaks out in them this spring. They're slow moving rivers. They're not any rapid or anything like that. But the Amacloa River and the Etowah River meet in that area, and evidently there is a Cherokee holdout village that was there at one time when they were rounding them up. They went there to kind of get away, and thought it'd be very interesting to go and maybe take the metal detector,
For
look
sure,
around.
man.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's always something about running water too, whether it's fast or slow.
Yeah.
There's always something about running water. Like
Well, the Etowah was known for, the highway for the Cherokee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. That was, look, I love the weird. Like, I love the weird. I love paranormal. I love UFOs, love cryptids. I love all this stuff. Like, I love talking about it and thinking about it. But my real passion, what I love talking about more than anything, is ancient history and ancient peoples and ancient artifacts. I've been looking at that the entire time, dude. I've been looking at those
My
pictures.
whole house is ancient Rome.
I love it. I love it. That's my favorite mythology. I mean, I was a little kid, as a little kid, I was buying books. I mean, I read Homer's The Iliad and Odyssey. Like, I don't know. I hadn't been reading very long, and I was reading these books. I mean, I've just always been so enamored with Greek and Roman mythology, but just anything that pushes the boundaries, I guess you'd say, like that's on the fringe. That's why I love Graham Hancock and the stuff that he's doing and figuring out. That's why I love people like Derek Olson with Megalithic Marvels and Brian Forster, Randall Carlson, all these people that Scott Walter, even, with what he did with America Unearthed, anybody that's out there that's kind of pushing the boundaries and saying, okay, here's what academia is telling us, but we have all the evidence to say otherwise. So why? Why is this being pushed? Yet we have the Kensington runestone in Minnesota that shows Viking runes on it. Why do we have, so much different stuff, dude? I mean, there's so many different
serpent
glyphs.
mounds.
Serpent mound. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever heard of the marching bear mounds?
No.
I hadn't either until Jeopardy tonight. But dude, literally these mounds in the shape of bears, and there's a bunch of them in a row, like they're marching in a line. I'd never heard of those.
Where are they at?
I can't remember now because I was just trying to figure out the question. But it was nuts. Joe, man, that whole deal with the I'm still taken aback with levitating and the theory of the other dimensions. That's really piqued my interest, man. I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna start. I'm sure you've done extensive research into it, actually experiencing it. But you haven't heard any other accounts like that?
Nope. I've never, and even when I told Vicky, and I'm sure she's heard more accounts than
Yeah.
most, and she's never heard anyone explain it like that, and it's the only, and this is bizarre, but the only other dream that really had an effect on me is one time I can't remember how I got to where I got in this dream. And I think I heard one of y'all talk about a dream you had where someone was chasing you, you were trying to protect your family, and maybe they had a gun or something, or maybe it was another podcast. But anyway, I'm running and I'm in the middle of a street and cars are stopped. And someone runs up to me with a revolver and shoots me with all 6 rounds right in the chest. And I woke up in the most pain I've ever felt in my entire life. I mean, I was just like, I couldn't breathe, and I could feel where I'd been shot. It hurt so bad. And then it gone.
I had a dream one time. This is kind of silly, but I had a dream one time. I was walking on this boat, and it was kind of set up like a pontoon, right? But there was like an aisle down the middle because it had shelves on the left and right. And I was standing in that aisle, and then boom, this snake bites me on my arm. I'm like, oh shit. And then it bites me again. I'm like, oh. Well, I wake up and there's a wasper on my arm stinging the shit out of me. But in my dream, it was a snake biting me. That wasper lit me up.
I had a similar dream to that where I dreamt I was camping, and I'd walked away from the campfire to go pee on a tree, and I woke up, and I'm not going to tell you where I was peeing. You talk about DeKalb County. I had a friend who lived in Decatur, and he lived at the end of this. It was called, there's East Ponce de Leon that goes through Decatur. Mm-hmm. There was a side road called East Ponce de Leon Court, and at the end of this road, a cul-de-sac, was a giant colonial size house. It had been turned into apartments, and all around the house was all these weird plants, mainly bamboo because it was everywhere, but other things. And the guy who owned the house back in the early 1900s, he was a world traveler and a hunter. And he would always bring plants back from wherever he went to, and he would plant them. Now, back behind that house was the, I think it's either DeKalb County or the Decatur graveyard. And it's an old graveyard. There's graves from the Revolutionary War in there. And it's almost like a park. Like, you always see people back there jogging, running, talking. We'd go back there and sit on the tombstones, get high. But there's got to be some creepy stuff back there that's old. And it's really cool because the guy, he owned all that property at one time and would plant stuff back there around the tombstones. And there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Dude, there's so much. I mean, you're still talking right now. You're still talking like foothills of Appalachia. There's so much just vast wilderness. And, of course, we center on Appalachia, on this show. Obviously, that's where we live. That's what we know. That's one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. Yep. That's where you have so many crazy stories and accounts and encounters coming from. Why not talk about it? But, dude, it's not just, in this country. Look at the Pacific Northwest. Look at the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico, and look at the Alps. Look across the world. Look at all the vast wilderness that's out there. There's still places on this earth, I would almost guarantee, that humankind has never stepped foot.
The middle of Greenland.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's an ice shield, but
yeah, absolutely. There's people, I mean, whatever is there in these places have never laid eyes on a human.
There's places in Canada that people have never gone.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You
Like,
can't get
people-
to almost.
No. So I mean, just imagine, like,
Yeah, I think I drove through there actually by accident.
well, they
Beautiful
haven't
country,
seen
by the way.
they have seen zero mankind except for Ryan. So the only opinion that they have on humans, period, come from Ryan.
And all they can say is,
Yeah, no
it
more.
was this big.
Yeah, no more. We can't take it. You get that shit out of here.
No, man, it is like that's when you just sit and let your mind wander, just all the possibilities and all the what could be's out there. It's just amazing to sit and think about.
When I was younger, me and this is, I don't want to say it was before internet. Yeah, it was before internet. Me and two friends decided we were going to sell everything we own and travel the country. And we did. We sold everything and we got a Jeep. And we drove for 5 months all over the United States.
That's awesome.
When we wanted to shower, we stopped and showered. We sat on the rim of the Grand Canyon and tripped our ass on peyote. We went in and out of weather, like from going from Texas to San Francisco and having to dodge all the passes because they were still snowed in. We were just like cold, hot, cold, hot. When I got to San Francisco, I was so sick, I was green. They had to get a hotel just because they thought I was going to die. I bought some of the best weed I ever smoked from there. And it was the time of my life, but man, we went to some places that like just, it was a time. I mean, we had a road atlas. That was it. It's like, oh, this looks cool. Let's go here. We went to the sign with Area 51 sign, pass here, you will be shot. Or we went there, it was time of my life.
That would be awesome.
It was, wouldn't trade it for anything.
That does sound awesome. That sounds awesome.
Didn't see one UFO.
That you know of.
That I know of.
Were you looking?
Yeah. Like sometimes.
Man,
Sometimes I was just wasted as could be.
that sounds great.
Joe, I do have to say, you are definitely the most interesting man this side of the mailbox.
Thank you. I worked a lot for that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell, dude. This has been, man. I just now realized how long we've been going, so I guess it's about time to wrap this thing up. But I could have these kind of conversations for hours and hours and hours on end. I could have talked this whole time just theorizing on your first couple accounts, your sleep paralysis accounts. So
I got a buddy. We should get him on here and talk. He's had more near death experiences than anyone I know in my life.
Really,
I mean, he should have been dead so long ago, and he's still kicking.
Yeah, man. Give him.
I was in one of them, but we stole his brother's car, which is an Alfa Romeo. It was 1972 Alfa Romeo, and we flipped it on an embankment, and it flipped up in the air and threw us both out. We should have died, but we didn't.
Wow. Well, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we're definitely giving him our contact info. We are definitely down to talk some NDEs for sure.
He loves to talk.
Well, he's perfect company then. No, Joe, man, this has been great, dude. Well, I appreciate you coming on here. I know this has been a long time coming. I know that we've had a couple little schedule changes and technical malfunctions, but I think everything happens when it's supposed to happen in the timing that it was meant to happen in. So
yeah, I hadn't had that dream before we spoke last time. If we'd had it last time,
yeah, it wouldn't have had anything to click in your brain.
Nope. Maybe that's what they were waiting on. Maybe the aliens made his microphone not work last time.
Maybe
could have been.
Or those humans in that other dimension. That's still
Yeah.
funny to think about. Just over there fucking with us.
When you have Vicky Joy on, maybe I can call in or whatever.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Sit in on that one,
dude.
you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, dude. Well, I'm sure she's probably going. I haven't even reached out yet, but this is going to sound kind of bad, I guess. But I just, when we decide that we're going to have a guest on, we have that guest on. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like I'm not trying to brag or try to boast in any kind of way or sound like we're some kind of big, huge, awesome show.
He's saying we're
But
blessed that
we are extremely blessed.
people have agreed to come on this show
Yeah.
because we're just three yahoos talking into microphones that enjoy the hell out of these kinds of topics. And come to find out, the podcast world isn't, dog eat dog. It's help each other out. And we're blessed to meet all these people that are willing to come on and talk to us. And we enjoy the hell out of talking to them.
And I felt most comfortable with y'all because the first time I heard you, I was like, hillbillies.
Yeah.
I can speak to them.
Straight out of the Appalachians, wood ticks.
Except Ryan, first time I ever heard someone use the word pop with a Southern accent.
Oh, yeah. Pop.
Yeah.
That's you keep going further south, like Mississippi, everything's a Coke. I don't understand that. What kind of Coke do you want? Like, fucking Coke.
The clear one.
There's only one kind that I know of.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely hillbilly for sure. Whatever you want to call it. That's, I started calling the folks out there Hillfolk because it didn't sound as derogatory as hillbilly. Yeah. So. But we wear it with honor. We wear the badge of hillbilly, redneck, podunk, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely.
It's a badge of honor.
We really are hill folk. I mean, it's
for sure. Yeah. It's an hour to Walmart.
Yeah.
when I lived on the Cumberland Plateau, it was an hour to the closest mall. That's where I can pinpoint where my marriage started to end right there.
Malls. Those we got a ways to go before we hit a mall.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, fellas, this has been a blast. Joel, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Or, like you said, you get your buddy on here. We'll all come together and chop it up. If we get Vicky on here, we'll see what we can do to get us all in together and talking. And I'm sure that she could give you a lot better analysis on your sleep paralysis. That would be one that we could just sit back and listen to you two talk and learn a whole lot, I'm sure. But no, we do. We appreciate you so much coming on here. That's something that we really enjoy and take pride in is bringing on the listeners of the show, and interacting with you and with other listeners and other people who have these awesome stories and these awesome accounts. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love talking to other content creators, and I definitely love just sitting down and chopping it up with Ryan and Lance. But man, it's just something about being able to sit down and talk with the people who, for some reason, I'll never know, decide to spend their time listening to what we have to say. And
you guys make a good group. I mean, when it's just you guys talking, I mean, it's entertaining. People like it. Y'all got something there. Something clicked.
We appreciate it, man. We really do. And again, I don't know how or why, but it just seems like something's leading and we're just stepping through the door whenever it opens and going along with it, man. Just going along for the ride.
We were having the conversations anyway. We just decided to record them.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. That's it. But again, man, thanks so much for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that you would like to push or promote or talk about before you jump off here? We love to give everybody the opportunity.
Just want to, thank everybody for getting me to the point where I am now. If I wasn't for my girlfriend, I love you, Amanda. Hollis Guy, you guys, The confessionals. I'll never get through to that guy, no matter how much I'll try to email Tony. No, I'm hopefully going to be starting a podcast with another guy here soon. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Absolutely. Well, let us
He's got some
know
stories.
let us know for sure, because dude, we'll push it from
Have
day
your
one.
show on here then?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Let us know. All right, man. That sounds good. Ryan, love you, brother.
Love you, buddy.
Love both of you. Thank you.
Hey,
love you, Joel.
man.
Thanks
for being on here, brother. Hillfolk, y'all remember, subscribe to our YouTube, rate and review this show wherever you listen to podcasts. Contact us with your stories, your experiences, your accounts and encounters at appalachianintelligence@gmail.com. Again, that's appalachianintelligence@gmail.com. More importantly than anything, share the show. Yes, sir, baby. Share the show. Share it however you're most comfortable sharing it. That's the only way this show grows. Our circles are only so big. We can only share it with so many people. It takes all of you out there putting in the work and the effort and the time in sharing this with whoever that makes it grow. And we appreciate it so much. We've got big things coming. You guys be on the lookout for that. We've got a couple conversations coming up, new information that's been found. We've got a lot going on. There's so much huge stuff. It seems like every time that we get a plan together that this is what we're going to do, something jumps in right in the middle of it and says, nope, this is what you're going to do, because it's priority one. So anyway, we have huge things coming in 2023. You guys just stick with us, man. Stick with us, because I promise it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. If you want to be on the show, if you have stories, accounts, something to share, you want to be on the show, please send it to our email, that email, appalachianintelligence@gmail. We try to respond to every message, every comment, any kind of interaction we get at all on social media, we try to respond to, and we try to respond to in a timely manner. But it's a lot of different platforms. I mean, you're talking Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, email, and it's a lot coming from a lot of different angles. So, sometimes we're sitting down and I'm talking to somebody and I'm hearing this awesome story and I'm like, oh, dude, you got to come on the show. Well, then, 3 or 4 or 5 more people message on different platforms in the same day. And it's, trying to go back and forth and coordinate them all. And it would make it a little easier for us if you want to be on the show, you're interested in coming on the show and sharing your story, sharing your experiences. Please send those requests to our email address. That way it'll keep everything streamlined. We can keep up with everything and everybody there. Now look, if you just want to reach out and say, hey, you can do that wherever. We'll get back with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sorry that I went into all that, but I needed to get that out there because I've got hours and hours worth of work to do and trying to find and coordinate and schedule and all that stuff. So, and again, that's a great problem to have. I'm not complaining by any means. That's a great problem to have people wanting to come on this show and sit down to talk with us idiots about the weird, man.
Yeah.
It just shows you how much the weird brings people together.
You were just saying, just be patient with us, because
for sure.
Justin has to deal with a lot because we don't help him. But I'll message you and be like, hey, dude, we got another email.
That's not a lie.
You need to get on this shit. What are you doing?
That's not a lie at all. All right, so I see red eyes at my front door right now, so that means it's time to go.
Yeah.
Mothman's here. All right.
Get out of here, devil.
Hillfolk, we love you. Do all those things that I just talked for 5 minutes about doing. And until next time, we'll see y'all later.